Hi, my name is Chris. I'm going to show you a few pointers about buying a used bike and a couple things you can look for. I guess first you take a look at the overall condition of the bike. I have a few bikes here. A couple have been wrecked. Most of them are in pretty good condition. One good thing to check is the fork seals. I know a lot of people miss that. I've missed it a couple times myself in buying bikes. Just stand them up on the front, hold the front brake, put a couple pumps, just in case the owner just recently wiped them off. You want to check all the way around. If you find any oily, greasy residue, then you probably have a leaky fork seal. Be sure to check both sides. The ones on this bike look good, not greasy, oily at all. If you do find a leaky fork seal, it usually the parts are cheap, about $20, but you're gonna have to dismantle the whole, pretty much take both forks off the bike. It usually ends up costing around $200 with labor unless you do it yourself, and you're gonna need a few specialty tools to do that. Something else to look for is broken bodywork. You can see this bike's obviously been dropped, wrecked, ran into something. When you see cracks in the bodywork, it's always good to check under it to make sure it's not just the bodywork that's hurt. If you check here, you can see a broken fairing stay. The mirror is very loose. The fairing stay, they can run anywhere from $50 to over a couple $100. It really depends on the bike. If you're gonna want the fairings to be perfect, just know these are pretty expensive. They can cost upwards of a couple $100 depending on the bike and depending on the fairing. This fairing here is probably anywhere from $150 used up to $200-300 OEM because it's a pretty large fairing. So if you don't really care about it being your first bike, just be sure to check for structural damage under the fairing. Something else you may want to look for is to see if the bike has been raced or tracked. It might be important to you, it might not. If it's been on the track, you can usually check the oil fill plug will have holes drilled in it. This is for safety wiring. There's a few other things that are safety wired. Dipsticks, you can see a real small hole in the dipstick there. One thing that's almost always safety wired, if you can see it, here's the drain plug. They do that so oil won't fall on the track. So if there's any safety wiring, then the bike has probably been on the track. If it's been raced, there will usually be holes drilled in the caliper bolts. You can check those. There'll be holes or safety wiring done to the rear axle bolt. Sometimes there'll be a lot of sticky stuff on the windscreen, like stickers have been put on and take off a lot. These are actually track day class identification stickers. If you see a lot of this, you can tell this bike's had a few on there. You know it's been on the track a good bit. Something else to definitely look for is not a very expensive part of the bike, but the chain and the sprockets. You can kind of see sprocket wear. This sprocket actually looks pretty good, but the chain is pretty dirty and needs adjusted very badly. That's way too loose for a chain. It'll give you a real jerky feeling when you ride it. If you test ride it, it's going to need tightened up. It's not hard to do, but it's bad for a chain to be loose for a long period of time. And it kind of gives you an idea on how well the previous owner took care of the bike. And if you're wondering if a bike has been down or been wrecked, you can always check bottom of the frame sliders if it has some. The levers, that's usually the first thing to go. You can see this bike's been dropped. Clutch needs tightened up a little bit as well. The decal here has a little scuffing on it. It was a very minor layover. You can tell just a few small scuffs, a few small scratches. I wouldn't really worry about something that minor. Tire wear is something else you're going to want to look at. You can see a flat spot on this rear tire. It makes it handle not so good. You're probably going to want to replace a tire like this, especially if it's your first bike and you're going to be learning on it. I have another tire here. This one is actually pretty new looking. It has very little wear, not much squaring off. I have a front tire here. This one definitely needs replaced. It's not even really safe to ride on. You can see where it's down to the lower layer of rubber, which really is not even supposed to be ridden on. So it's got a lot of cupping. It definitely needs to replace. Some uneven wear usually happens when you ride with low tire pressure or really bad suspension settings sometimes. You're going to want to listen to the engine when you're buying a bike. So crank it up. Mostly you can get down beside it. You can hear the noises when you're closer to the engine. Any excessive ticking, a lot of bikes tick, it's really just a cam chain. Little small ticks, no big deal, but any excessive knocking, excessive ticking, banging noises are never good. You may want to crank the bike up. Don't give it a big rev or anything. You're not really supposed to rev bikes when they're not warm. I've already warmed this one up a little bit. You can look at the exhaust. If you see excessive amounts of black smoke coming out, it may mean that oil is escaping by the piston rings. See, this bike smokes just a little bit, so that's another thing to look for. That's a pretty expensive job if you do have to replace the rings. You should definitely check all of your turn signals and blinkers. Some are integrated, so you really won't see. You don't have to crank the bike to do this, but this has an integrated system. You can see left blinker, right blinker, both working correctly. Front blinkers, left, right. Make sure the high beams turn on and off. Check the brake lights. Brake lights working correctly. You can check your hazards. I actually don't even know how to turn the hazards on this bike. It's kind of sad. Some bikes have pass buttons, so it really just flashes your bright lights to let the car know you're coming by. You're going to want to check for dents and dings in the wheel. You can look along the lip. You'll usually see a bend. Just take a close look at it. Sometimes you'll have to look a little closer. Make sure the brake rotors look straight. You don't want to buy anything with crooked brake rotors. If you can't test ride the bike, I suggest getting on it, pumping the brakes, rolling it a few feet, pumping the brakes again. If the brake rotors are bent, they will push the pistons out, and the brakes will have a little bit of squishiness before they get tight again. If possible, you're always going to want to check the gas tank, especially if somebody tells your bike's been sitting a little while. If you have a flashlight, it works best. Can't really see anything right now, but you're going to want to be looking for any rust, discoloration, corrosion. You can really clog a fuel system up. Alright, thanks for watching my video. I hope I helped you a little bit to make a little more informed decision on buying a used motorcycle. Good luck, have fun, be safe, and enjoy your new bike.